I'm going to show you how I made a cheap ozone sterilizer using a plastic storage bin, some tubing, and an ozone generator which you can buy online, and some of the evidence behind using it to sterilize items from the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has people looking for ways to sterilize and sanitize items, things like delivery packages, groceries, masks, and that led me to think about ozone. Ozone is a molecule made up of 3 oxygens, and it's very unstable because oxygen usually exists as a pair with just 2 oxygens. But under certain conditions, 3 oxygens will come together and form ozone. And it doesn't want to stay that way, so it's always looking for something to give that extra oxygen to, and we say that's oxidizing. And that action is what kills microorganisms like bacteria and viruses. That's also how hydrogen peroxide works, by the way. Now, you can buy ozone generators online, and so this sounds great so far, but there's a problem with ozone. That same oxidizing property makes ozone a very harmful chemical to breathe. It can damage your lungs, and so much so that I don't even think you can buy an ozone generator in California. But in a controlled environment like the one I'm going to show you, I think it can be safely used. Now, the truth is, fumes from lots of chemicals that we use on a daily basis are dangerous to breathe, like bleach or gasoline. But again, I think they can be used safely if you're careful. And for me, I'm only going to use my ozone generator outside. So I was wondering if ozone may be effective against the coronavirus. And I looked online and found a research paper published in 2009 where some researchers concluded that ozone could kill various viruses at relatively low concentrations in a short period of time. The researchers looked at various viruses, including, and this is important, the mouse coronavirus, which is similar in structure to COVID-19, in that it's an RNA virus surrounded by a protein coat. In their experiments, they were able to get a 3-log inactivation, which means going from 1,000 active viral particles down to 1, by exposing it to 20 parts per million of ozone in 20 minutes. Now, here's the surprising thing. They were only able to get this kind of inactivation if they raised the humidity briefly at the end of the exposure. At 40% relative humidity, the inactivation was relatively modest, but at 70% or higher, the inactivation rates were dramatic. Without the moisture, ozone was not nearly as effective. So the question I had is, would I be able to achieve the same kinds of concentrations that they did in my home unit? The problem is that most units are quoted in milligrams per hour, and this paper talks about parts per million. So I had to do some converting, and I put together a spreadsheet, which I'm happy to share if you'll email me, or I'll figure out a way to upload this. But the upshot of this is that 20 parts per million is very easy to reach with even a low output ozone generator like the one I'm using. The one I'm using makes 600 milligrams per hour, and when I input the size of my plastic bin, I can get to 20 parts per million in about 20 seconds. That doesn't mean that the kill is going to happen in 20 seconds. You still probably need 20 to 30 minutes for that. But assuming my calculations are correct, you shouldn't have any trouble reaching the ozone concentrations these researchers used. So to make the decoroninator, for lack of a better name, all I did was put what I wanted to sterilize inside the bin. Then place the ozone generator's tubing inside the bin, being careful not to crimp the tube. Then I put the lid on and turn it on for a few minutes. As for the humidity, I went kind of high-tech, and I drilled a hole in the top of my bin and connected it with a piece of silicone tubing to my daughter's humidifier. And I'll turn that on for a minute or two at the end of the session, or near the end of the session. Now, if you don't have a humidifier or tubing, there's a low-tech way of doing this. Just grab a spray bottle, put some clean water in it, and give it a spritz. And the only downside to this is you're letting out some ozone. So try not to open it too much and don't breathe it in. And you may want to run your ozone for a few more minutes afterwards. Alternatively, you could just place a wet sponge in the plastic bin, which should also raise the humidity. So you may think this is overkill for packages and groceries, and perhaps, but here's my thought. We know that hospitals and other first responders are running short on masks. So what if using ozone in a simple container like this would allow a mask to be safely reused? 1 or 2 of these decoroninators could serve an entire medical team. Now, I'm not making any claims that this works. This is just what I did and the research I found to support it. I did notice that the researchers who published that paper worked for the same company that made the ozone generator that they used. So it would be nice to see an independent lab with the right capabilities investigate this and see if it's an effective solution. But if this looks promising to you, I'd like to ask that you not just run out and buy an ozone generator. and then we run out of them like what happened with the mask. But instead, please first share this with any first responders or ER personnel that you may know so they can consider if this may be useful for them. Good luck. Stay safe.